Good morning and welcome to Heartland Outdoor Living. This morning we're going to be doing a real quick video showing you how to make bacon in a cast iron skillet. Oh, whoa. Wait a minute. This morning we're going to be doing a video showing you how to make a leather wrap for your cast iron skillet. Let's get to the video. And today on Heartland Outdoor Living, we're going to be teaching you how to make a leather handle wrap for your Lodge cast iron skillet. Let's get to eating some bacon, let's go do some leather work. I didn't get burned. Alright, real quick guys, what I want to show you is this is essentially what I did to make this template. This is just a manila folder. It's fairly firm, so that's what I do a lot of times. I'll make templates using that. And if you guys want to, I'm just going to kind of go over and show you what you need to look at when we're getting ready to size this up for the leather. But this is the actual outline of the handle, and again we're using the Lodge, so if you want, you can actually download the templates, and I'll go over that here in a second, but I want to show you what we're doing. Number one is this is basically the exact size of the handle. So when you're getting ready to cut your leather out, you need to make it wider, and it's twofold because you're going to have to sew your leather, and then so here would be the actual edge. You're going to have to, and this is kind of an experimental process. And a lot of leather work there's not an exact science. It's just a little bit of trial and error, because this right here, let's just say this is a 1/2 inch, and then I'm planning on going in 1/4 of an inch for my sew line, and then that gives you a little bit of a gap here. But if you sew differently than I do, you may need to go wider, or you could even come in narrower. But the thing that you got to be cognitive of or think about is this right here is much narrower than this width back here. So you have two options. If you're going to come in tight, and basically if you go to our website and you download the 3 patterns, I've got them listed. This is like option number 1, and if you'll notice, we have no sew lines on the template for this particular one, because you've got to have a little bit of a space, because if you sew this down tight, you're never going to get it over the wide part of the handle. It just isn't going to work. So that's why you need to think about it before you start. Okay, so option number 2, what we did is we just made this a little bit wider. Instead of as bottlenecked as the original version, it's a little bit wider, and you should be able to get away with sewing down the entire both sides. I personally like them both. I like the tighter fit, but then you have a couple of little loose pieces down here that aren't sewn. The top and bottom aren't sewn. So it's just a matter of opinion and what you decide you like. And then I also drew up a 3rd one, which will make it easier. So if you want to use this template, you can basically come in here, and we're going to show you how to do that next, laying it out. Is you're going to come in here with your stylus or pencil or whatever you're doing. We're going to damp the leather down, and then you're going to use this actual template on your leather, and then you can actually come in here and follow along this dotted line and kind of make yourself some lines on the leather so that you can sew it. And this is basically, I'm calling it option 3, but this is just a little bit bigger version of option 2 so that you can hand sew it. And then again, on the leather, we're going to be using 3 to 4 ounce. And I'll turn that sideways here. We're going to be using 3 to 4 ounce leather on this. If you're going to be using thicker leather, make your template a little bit wider than this one, because it's going to be a thicker piece of leather. Is going to take up more space from the gap. When you actually sew this down flat, your leather is not going to separate as much on a thicker piece as it will a thinner leather. So just bear that in mind if you're using thicker leather. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to get our leather, just go ahead and wet it down. And you don't want it necessarily soaking wet, but just get it wet. And what essentially happens when we lay this pattern on here, we'll be able to, there's our leather, you can kind of see it now, the leather piece underneath there. So we have plenty of room there. We'll take a stylus or a pen, you could do either, but you're going to come in here and you're going to outline this leather. We'll go across the entire outline of the pattern. And again, guys, it doesn't have to be 100% accurate because we're going to come in and we're going to sand the edges. But what I do want to do is go down on these dots here that are already pre-drawn on the template, and that's going to give us a guideline to follow when we get ready to start with the pricking iron. So as you can see, and I don't know how well you can see that, it may be easier for me to see it, but here's our hard outline right here, and then here's our dotted. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our box knife and cut that out. If you guys remember on the tool list, we decided we could go with something cheap and just use a regular box knife. You may actually already have one in your house, so let me find my box knife. And I'll give you a real quick hint. A lot of people don't realize this, but you can actually strop a razor blade. But you want your box knife or whatever you're using, you want it razor sharp. But you can strop your knife on your leather strop and get it to where it's razor sharp. And she's just going to cut along the outside edge, staying away from the dotted line that we have for the sew line. And again, it doesn't have to be exact, so don't be 100% concerned with how close you are to the line, because we're going to sand off later. So you just want to get it close to the line. And if you see how that leather is just falling off the razor blade, we stropped it to where it's nice and sharp, so it's easy to cut. And again, this is 3 to 4 ounce leather. It's not super thick. This is just going to be a nice size that's workable for beginners. And then if you want to go up even higher, you could actually buy some heavier dutier leather and make it a thicker one. But 3 to 4 ounce seems to work okay, and it also has a little bit of stretch to it, so you'll be able to get it on your pot handle easier. But as you can see, she's just taking her time. There's no rush on this. And then boom, that's it, guys. She's got it cut out. So what we're going to do next is we're going to grab that other piece of leather and we're going to flip it inside out, and then she's going to use that pen that's right beside her to just draw a rough outline of the one that she just cut out on the back side of the other piece of leather. And that way, again, this is just going to make it easier so that they kind of match. And this is not going to be seen because it'll be on the inside, and then actually we'll end up sanding that off anyway, so it's not that big a deal. As you can see, she's just running a pencil. And then again, another little trick and tip is when she's cutting this out, she's going to go a little bit to the outside of that line because it's going to make it a lot easier when she gets ready to glue it up. She's not going to have to try to match it up exactly. So by staying away from the line, it gives you a little more room to play with so that you're not having to fight that and get them matched up identical. So she's staying wide of the line, and you can make that as much as you want. She's been doing this a lot, so she's not going real wide, but I would say for a beginner, I would make that other piece about 1/4 of an inch wider than the other one all the way around. That way when you get ready to do the glue up, it's just going to be easier on you, and it doesn't have to be an exact matchup. Because once that glue sets, and we're going to go to that next, it's going to be tough to take apart. Alright guys, she's getting her glue. Again, this is the Bargs. We go through a lot of the glue, so we actually have the big one. And the link on that very first video we did on the top 10 tools or whatever that you'll end up wanting, we put a link to a smaller tube, and the tube might actually work a little bit easier because you can kind of squeeze it out. But basically the way this rubber cement works is it sticks to itself. So if you end up making a mess and getting it a little too sticky, it's not that big of a deal, because you can actually probably rub it off because it's just going to stick to itself a lot of times. And then also I want you to note we didn't stain this, just in case some of y'all haven't got the leather stain yet. We're going to do this in what you call a natural, and it's just going to be the natural color, and then over time it will get its own little patina to it and make it look a little more authentic. But it's going to look cool either way, whether you decide to stain it or not. And we'll show some versions of it with it stained when we get this done, because we'll show you the difference kind of between doing it by hand, and then also Angie's going to sew one up with her sewing machine, and that way you can kind of see the difference between hand sewn and versus the sewing machine. And there's pros and cons to both, and it's just a matter of what a person likes. And I'm wanting to show you guys how you can do this without the expense of the sewing machine, because you don't need that expensive sewing machine unless you're just cranking out a lot of stuff. She's going to go ahead and do the other side real quick. And then again guys, she's putting the glue on the inside because you're going to go inside to inside to glue it up, and she'll flip that other one over real quick, and we'll speed through this because you guys obviously know what she's doing. She's basically trying to stay on that outside of the sew line where she's going to end up sewing. So she'll get that, and then we'll come back. Alright, so she's got both sides, the glue's down, and then what you want to do is you just kind of want to wait until it's not really sticky.
Tacky.
Yeah, and then you're going to place them on top of each other. And again, if you'll cut that other piece wider, and that's what I was trying to explain at the very beginning, it makes this so much easier, because after you get them glued together, you can trim off the edges. Alright, we're to the point where we're ready to start, and we're going to run the pricking irons down the edge of this, and you'll see that there's some curve to this. So we've got a couple of different sizes, and she's actually got a single, so when you start getting more into the curve, she'll be switching over to the other pricking irons. But basically your number one deal that you want to do is you want to make sure that you're vertical both up and down and left and right. The forward and backwards is kind of self-aligning with the when you've got multiple teeth like that, but you want to make sure that whenever you start hitting that and driving that through, you're not going out the edge on the other side, which is another reason you want to leave that bottom side wider. And we'll do all the trim up later. But she's going to go ahead and start hammering it in. She's right-handed, so we're on the right-hand side of her so you can kind of see. But she doesn't have to go in very far, just far enough to get the deal through the pricking iron through both pieces of leather. And then when you're pulling it out, you want to make sure, and you didn't necessarily see her do it, but she'll put her finger down here so that it's not stretching the hole out. So when she's pulling it out, you don't want to, because you can end up stretching those holes out way bigger than they need to be by the way you pull the tool out when you're done. But she's just fine-tuning it. She's lining it up with her right hand right now, getting it ready to line up, and then she's going to start with the next one. But what she's going to do when she starts with this iron here is she's actually going to line it up in that last hole, so that way when she starts this, even though she's going with a 3-prong, your hole spacing is going to be the same. So she's lining it up on the back hole, and now that she's got it lined, she's holding it vertical left and right and frontwards and backwards, and then she's the same deal, just kind of light taps, get it through there while she's holding that steady. And then she's going to use her right thumb to hold there you go. Yeah, she's just using both fingers to pull it out. That way it's not coming out at an angle. And then she's going to continue doing that all the way around. I'll come around to the other side and get some video of her doing it. But basically she's just following that line that we initially marked in when we was marking the pattern out. on the leather. So she's just going to keep on going and keep on hammering that through. And you notice each time she does that, she's flipping it over to make sure that it's actually gone through, but she's lining up. Each time she'll line up off of that last hole, that way it's keeping her spacing correct. And then again, you'll see she's going to lift that tool up and make sure that it's gone through before she pulls it out. And then she's fixing to get down here into the curve where she's going to have to go over to the single one. And then when you get over here and you're using the single piece, or if you're just using a awl to punch through, you're just going to kind of try to, your goal here is to make all your spacing pretty much the same. And I mean, this is done by hand, so people are going to expect a fair amount of errors, but you can get really close with just a little bit of practice. You can get this down to a science, because all it is spacing and just trying to keep it equal. Yeah, that curve there, you're probably just going to have to go all the way around. So, and that's how you're going to go around the curves. I will bring you back when she gets this all punched out, and then we'll start into the actual sewing. And this view looking right over her shoulder is probably the best view yet. You can kind of see what she's doing. She's just continuing to go down that, double checking each time. She's pulling that out so that she's not stretching the leather. And she's keeping her spacing the same all the way down. And again, this isn't a real tight curve, so she's able to get away with the 3-prong. And then if it was really straight, they sell like 5, 6, and 7-prong tools and all that, but this is just a nice gentle curve, so the 3 and the 5 are working okay in the flat spots. So. And then what she's going to do, it looks like she needs one more down here on the end, and she can actually just use her single, or she could just use that other tool that she just had and move it over one stitch, and it would be exactly the same. So she's chose to do the single, so she's going to hit it one time, and that's her last stitch right there. So next we're going to get out some thread, and then also I want to show you real quick before we get out the thread, I want to show you one of the optional tools that we had was if you could actually use a nail or a stitch awl. And I'll show you that tool real quick, because you could do the same thing. It's just a little quicker with these pricking irons. And that's the tool right there that she's holding in her hand. And then it's basically, she can show you, I mean, she's already punched the holes, but basically all you would do is you just line it up and on your spacing, whatever you decide to do, and you can just kind of shove it through there into that cutting board. And
yeah, no hammer.
Yeah, you don't need a hammer, because those stitching awls are actually really sharp. And if you used to sharpen up a nail, it'd be the same deal. The nail you might actually tap with a hammer, but the stitch awl is so sharp you don't need to. And you got to be real careful. I would definitely use your cutting board, or you're going to end up messing up the tip on your stitch awl. But that's just another option. Like I say, we're trying to keep this cheap and teach you how to do this stuff without a lot of expense, but that's probably your cheapest option. Is instead of buying the pricking irons, you can actually use just an awl or a nail that you've sharpened up and just punch the holes through there with that. Alright, while she's prepping the thread, I'll go ahead and kind of tell you the best way to figure this out is, as a general rule of thumb, between 2.5 and 3 times the length of your project that you're sewing is what you want to cut your string. And if you've got plenty of string, it doesn't hurt to go ahead and just do it 3 or 4 times. Alright, so to thread this, what she's going to do is she's going to poke the thread through the eye of the needle. She's going to bring it through far enough that she can lay the thread on the cutting board. And then she's going to run the needle through the center of the thread. She's poking it and then she's pulling it up.
Maybe. Here we go.
And then she's going to pull it all the way down. and then back over itself, so it kind of locks on there, and then hold it down a little bit lower back.
Self-knotting.
Okay, she's using blue thread. That's what she wanted to use on this project, and then it should also show up on the camera a little bit better since we got the veg tan material. But basically she's ran the needle through the first hole, and she's pulled that taut and got it to where it's centered up. So she's now got one on the left side and a needle on the right side. So this is going to be basic saddle stitching is what she's doing. So she's going to grab the needle on this side. She's going to keep them separate. Now then, this time the top thread is going to go through the second hole, and she'll pull it all the way through, and then she's going to drop that one, pick up the other needle, and it's going to go through
that same
hole. But right there where she's at, you want to kind of, when she's pulling that, make sure that it's not pulling that thread out, because if you've gone through that thread, that's not good. You want to make sure that you're not going through the other thread that you've already poked a hole. You don't want to poke a hole through that other thread.
Right.
So this is just like say, it's a real easy basic saddle stitch, and she's going to grab both of them and pull them tight. At the same time, she'll pull on both of them.
I did.
And then now that she's got this one needle in her hand already and she's got it facing forward, she's going to put that one through the third hole and come back through and do the exact same thing. Just going to pull it all the way through and just lay that needle on the ground or whatever, and she's going to get the other needle. And she's going to go, what she's doing is she's kind of pulling this to the side a little bit so that she doesn't poke through the thread. She's going on the other side of it. And then it'll just go through, just like last time. She'll pull it all the way, and then when she gets both of them through, she's going to pull on them both slightly, about the same amount of tension as the last time. She's already got that needle in her hand, so she's going to go to the fourth hole, and she's going to run it through to the bottom. And then the same deal, she's going to pull that string a little bit to the left so that she doesn't sew through it. And then we'll just fast forward through the rest of this, but she's going to continue sewing that up, and we'll come back when she's done and we'll show you how to tie the knot. But that's essentially your basic saddle stitch. It's just you're running the thread over through the same hole front and back all the way through. She's in the fifth hole now, pulling that one through. And then one of the key things when you're doing this, guys, is to be consistent. Whatever you start out doing, do the same thing over each time, because if you're going to pull to the left when she's going through the back, and then the next time you pull through the right, it's going to show on the top side and the bottom, because it's going to look a little bit different each time. So the biggest deal on hand stitching is being consistent. And then, like I say, we can get into some other fine art part of this to where you'd actually pull, if you had it in a stitching pony, you would actually pull one of them up and one of them down. But we're just doing a real quick video teaching you the basic saddle stitch. We're not getting into the art side of it and all the fancy side of it, but this is essentially how you're going to do it. Again, that time, since she's holding the project a little bit different, she pulled the string up instead of to the left, but it's the same thing that she was doing when she was holding it sideways. And that just helps ensure that she's not running her needle through that thread. And then also, these needles that we're using are not super sharp, which helps to keep you from accidentally poking through the thread when you're going through that second hole. But like I say, it's not a speedy process, but this is one of these projects where you're enjoy the process of it, because that's a lot of the fun, is enjoying the process. It's not meant to be a super quick deal. It's part of the process is just working with your hands and doing something that, you know, a lot of people have never done, and maybe a lot of people have wanted to do and they just never took the time to learn or whatever, or they just don't know, or nobody's ever showed them. So we're hoping we can show you some of these, and it'll be something that you can actually do down the road. I know there's a lot of, and you know, you can take this any way you want, but there's actually a lot of kids who've never learned how to sew, and they're in their adult life. They're in their adult life before they learn how to sew. But this is just a basic saddle stitch, and like I say, she's doing a great job. She's been doing stitching for a long time, so she's really, really good at this. And I will bring you, we're going to go ahead and I'll stop talking, and we'll let her finish that up, and then we'll come back to you. Okay, she's on that last hole, so what she's going to do is to get the thread back on the back, she's going to go down one hole, and she's going to run it all the way through so that both of the pieces of thread are on the back side. And then she'll tie that one up. And it sounds like a train, and I'm going to go shut the windows. Believe it or not, guys, it's January, what is today?
The 10th?
January 10th. We're under
70 degrees.
Yeah, 70 some odd degrees. It's like spring showers, and we're actually under a tornado watch here in the great state of Oklahoma. But you see how she tied that double knot, and then she's, while I'm going to go shut the windows, she's going to cut that off with the razor blade.
Right, and where's the little...
And then when you get done sewing, you can actually kind of go through and then get everything kind of lined up with your fingernail, or use one of your the stylus tool that you used or whatever. You can get it all kind of in line. If it looks like it's out just a little bit, just kind of straighten it up with your fingernail and get it looking pretty. This is the back side, and then the front generally typically always looks a little better on the front anyways. And then if you want to, you can actually hammer that down a little bit with the hammer. Just make sure when you're hammering you're not doing it on your cutting board, because that cutting board has kind of a grid, and it will smash that grid into the leather. So just kind of smash it all down, and then look at that. Nice professional looking, all matched up, really good looking sewing job. Next thing we're going to do, guys, is we're going to address the edges. So what we're going to do is she's going to use her cutting board, and she's going to cut that outer layer that's just a little bit thicker than the top layer with a razor blade. Once she gets that cut, we're going to sand the edges lightly with the sandpaper, and then we will go to the little circle slicker or whatever tool you have to burnish with. So we listed a couple of the burnishing tools on the top 10 list, and we're just going to use the cheapest one on there just in case that's the one everybody's using. And it's just a little wooden stick. But she's doing that right now. She'll cut those edges, and then we'll get the sandpaper. Here's the little burnishing tool. So while she's cutting that, I'll grab her little sandpaper deal. And this sandpaper doesn't have to be anything fancy, just whatever you've got handy laying around the house that you've already got. Typically, if you got a woodworker in your family or you know somebody that does any of that, you'll probably just got some sandpaper laying around from even just basic home repairs or whatever, but you don't need anything super fancy. This tool right here is just a regular tool you can pick up at Home Depot, or you can just wrap some sandpaper around a stick like what I got on the edge of the frame right now, trying to stay out of her way. And then
Since she has a razor.
yeah, since she's got a knife in her hand. And then this is just another little version of a burnisher tool here.
I noticed you were on really good behavior right now.
Yeah, I try to behave when she's got a razor blade. So now that she's got her edges, she's just going to sand that real quick and kind of smooth it out a little bit. So to burnish the edges, the easiest way to do this is we're just going to use that same sponge. You could use a rag or whatever. And if you've got saddle soap, it's fine, but you don't have to have it. We just use it because we do a lot of this, but you can actually do it with just water. And essentially you're just wetting those edges. And then she's going to use that circle slicker or burnishing tool, whatever you want to call it. And again, if you'd like to enter for your chance to win the Buzzy Wax Giveaway, we're doing a 1,600 subscriber giveaway, and we're actually adding to the pot a little bit. We initially did a video telling you that we was going to be giving away a Buzzy Wax, the green, and then we're also going to be throwing in one of these skillet handles that Angie has made. So just kind of sweeten it up a little bit, and that's just kind of our way of saying thanks to everybody who's been a subscriber, and thanks for all your support and helping us get up to the 1,600 subscribers. And for your chance to win, and for your additional chances to win the Buzzy Wax, all you have to do is, number one, be a subscriber. Number two, go over to Instagram and follow Heartland Leatherworks, Heartland Outdoor Living, as well as Buzzy Wax. That'll give you 4 more chances to win, and we're gonna go through, and if you've commented below to let us know that you're wanting in on this, and then you've also, if you've liked us on Instagram and you've liked Buzzy Wax on Instagram and you've liked, like say, Heartland Leatherworks and Heartland Outdoor Living on Instagram, then you will get additional chances to win. And again, guys, if you would like, we do have full video plans, the PDF download, as well as we're going to be throwing in an option where you could get a couple of pieces of leather and enough of the waxed thread to actually do this project. It'll be the brown thread with 2 pieces of the veg tan leather, just like what Angie's doing in this video, and you can order that from heartlandleatherworks.com. It'll be on the website by the time this video airs, so we kind of give back to the community. That's what all this is about, is we're just trying to help, and it just makes it fun for everybody involved. So again, we appreciate your likes, comments, and subscribes, and may you have a blessed week. And then also, to make this simpler, what we've decided to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to offer an option on the website just for you guys that just want to learn the craft or not spend a ton of money. What we're going to offer is the 3 PDFs, 2 pieces of leather big enough to make your template. We're not going to cut them, they're just going to come to your rectangle, but they'll be big enough for you to use the template. and then also some of the thread, which what we've got is this brown, and it's the tiger thread, which is the wax thread. And there'll be enough in that little kit, so you get 2 pieces of leather and the wax thread to follow along if you choose to. Again, we don't care one way or another. We're just trying to help the people who don't want to spend a bunch of money, because this stuff gets expensive buying it all. And if you're just wanting to see if you want to try it and see if you even like it, that's a cheap way to get the templates and the leather and some thread to sew up your own project. Makes a great little gift for Mother's Day or whatever coming up. So alright guys, so let's get to the actual leather. I'm going to have Angie come in here. She's going to help me, because obviously I'm not going to be able to stamp any of this with my left hand being messed up a little bit. So she'll do that and I'll do the video. So let's get to the video, guys.